Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, eye on Omicron. This morning, the latest on the spread of COVID's latest concerning mutation here in the U.S. At least 5 states have now identified new cases of the rapidly spreading variant, with Hawaii being the latest add overnight. Many of the patients already vaccinated, but showing only mild symptoms. White House now hard at work to keep those numbers as low as possible as we head into an uncertain winter. President Biden yesterday unveiling his plan of attack.
It doesn't include shutdowns or lockdowns, but widespread vaccinations and boosters and testing and a lot more.
We'll dig into the administration's latest efforts to curb this spread, including a major emphasis on testing. Plus, spotting the strain. NBC News has been granted an exclusive look inside one of America's largest at-home COVID test manufacturers. Big question this holiday season, will they detect this new Omicron variant? Also this morning, in search of care, with comprehensive abortion access at stake for millions of Americans, California is now gearing up for an influx of out-of-state patients if the Supreme Court sides with a controversial ban out of Mississippi. Now, the Golden State is preparing for what could be a landmark change to the law and a woman's right to choose. And Waltz of the Warehouse, a delicate dance of delivery droids. It's happening around the clock at Amazon's fulfillment centers from coast to coast, ensuring you get your precious cargo fast for that holiday deadline. We've got a behind-the-scenes look at the tech giant's vast network of planes, trucks, bots, and even sophisticated software that keeps orders moving. Good to have you with us on this Friday morning. We begin with the spread of the Omicron COVID variant nationwide. At least 5 states are now reporting cases of the new strain. New York reporting 5 cases, adding to confirmed ones in Hawaii, Colorado, Minnesota, and California. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock is in Miami following the latest on Omicron.
Vicki and Joe, good morning. As more cases of the Omicron variant are identified, the Biden administration is getting more aggressive, not just with vaccines and boosters, but also with testing. These at-home kits cost about $30. You can find them online at your local drugstore as well. Starting next month, insurance companies will have to reimburse you for these. The question is, will that be enough to prevent another COVID wave?
Omicron now spreading on American soil. 5 new cases confirmed in New York alone.
The early cases that have arisen are not life-threatening. They seem to be minor cases, and that is a source of good news for us right now.
So far, it's been reported in 5 states, the latest Hawaii overnight. The mysterious variant's potential severity still unclear. A Colorado woman just returned from southern Africa, where Omicron is surging.
She is experiencing mild symptoms and is isolating at home. She was vaccinated but had not been boosted.
It follows confirmed cases in California, San Francisco, and now L.A., as well as Minnesota.
It's not surprising that it showed up.
That Minnesota infection involving a man who was vaccinated and boosted. He attended a large anime convention at the Javits Center in New York City last month.
I have a family at home, so I don't want them to catch it. I don't want them to come home and catch it.
We're going to fight this variant with science and speed, not chaos and confusion.
President Biden announcing a series of new actions aimed at curtailing a winter COVID spike.
It doesn't include shutdowns or lockdowns, but widespread vaccinations and boosters and testing.
Part of that effort, expanded travel restrictions and more accessible at-home tests. Millions of free kits will be distributed at community sites, and private insurers will reimburse people who buy them in stores or online.
Those at-home antigen tests that you can buy over the counter at any drugstore or pharmacy is absolutely essential to helping to control this pandemic.
Earlier this year, it took the Delta variant about 3 months to become the dominant COVID strain in the U.S. Doctors say the best defense against all variants is still getting vaccinated and boosted. Anyone over the age of 5 can get a vaccine, and boosters are now not just available, but recommended for every adult.
Do it today, not when Omicron has already been identified in your community.
The Delta variant right now still makes up about 99.9% of all COVID cases in the United States, but experts say it's likely a matter of weeks, not months, before it becomes the dominant strain here. And adding to concerns this morning, researchers in South Africa finding that the Omicron variant is about 3 times more likely to reinfect the population than the Beta or Delta variants. Back to you guys.
Sam, thank you. Now, when it comes to travel, the Omicron variant is adding new complications to an already busy season, especially now that new travel restrictions are going into place. NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson is at New York's LaGuardia Airport with the new changes this holiday season.
Hey, Vicki and Joe, you know, just when it started to feel like things were getting back to normal, up pops the Omicron variant here and around the country. And this morning, it is fueling fears that it could stall a recovery in the travel industry in New York City and around the world. Just as the holiday travel season was beginning to rev its engines, news of the Omicron variant threatening to upset itineraries, with millions now reconsidering their long-awaited holiday plans.
Of course, I'm nervous.
Others confident vaccines, masking, and social distancing will keep them safe.
We cannot just live in fear, and we have to do what we have to do.
And some of that is changing. Starting December 6th, all international travelers coming to the U.S., including American citizens, will have to show a negative COVID test taken within 24 hours of departure. And the mask requirement that has sparked outrageous and dangerous behavior by a few is now extended through March 18th on all domestic flights and public transportation. Fines will now double for those who refuse to comply. But there is still no vaccine or testing requirement for those flying domestically. The White House is keeping its options open.
I would say that nothing is off the table. But we do have some protections, some strong protections in place already, including requirement of mask wearing.
United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby expects some financial turbulence from Omicron, but nothing as severe as the Delta variant.
It's going to certainly have a near-term impact on bookings. Bookings are going to be lower than they otherwise would have been. But, you know, I think this will be 3 steps forward, 1 step back, whereas...
As the world waits for more information about Omicron, health experts say the best protection for travelers is to get vaccinated. If celebrating with family and friends, keep gathering small, host guests outdoors if possible, and remember to wash your hands regularly. But if you are reconsidering your plans, travel experts say call before canceling.
If you decide that you're uncomfortable traveling, call the airline, see what they'll do for you. A lot of times they will give you at least the value of the flight in a voucher that you can use on a future trip.
Now, because of this new testing requirement, if you're coming from another country, travel experts suggest that you choose your dates when you come back in here very carefully and try to avoid weekends and holidays because tests may be harder to get then. Vicki and Joe?
And thank you. A lot of people hoping to get together this holiday season will be looking to get their hands on an at-home COVID test. But can those tests detect the Omicron variant? NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber joins us now from Abbott Park, Illinois, home of Abbott Labs, one of the companies that's been producing at-home tests during the pandemic. So, Ellison, what is Abbott saying about Omicron? Can their tests accurately detect it?
It's a really good question, Joe, and one I think a lot of families have as they plan to travel and visit other members of their family and just want to have an extra layer of protection. The short answer is yes. Abbott says they are confident that their rapid at-home test will pick up the Omicron variant and all the other ones before. They have a lot of labs with machines that look exactly like this, running all kinds of tests. This machine, this lab in particular, they're running tests on COVID samples to make sure that their antibody tests work. But when it comes to all the other tests they manufacture, PCRs, rapid tests, they are running those tests in labs all around here as well, and we got to see some of them. So there are 2 ways that they say they know and are confident their rapid test will work. One, they got access to the Omicron sequence, which literally, and we looked at this, and you can see it in some of our video too, it looks like a crazy code with just letter after letter after letter that they run through a computer analysis, and they're able to see where it changed, where others did not. You can see her pointing at some of it there, showing us the purple means the changes. And the second line there, that line, that is the Omicron variant, and it had the most changes. So they said by running their sequence through all of their computer analysis, they were able to determine that, yes, their test will pick up this new variant despite all of the mutations. The other way they say they were able to determine this is through a physical sample. They actually have partners all around the world, a global pandemic task force, and one of their partners in South Africa who sent them the initial sequence was able to take a physical sample from a patient who had the Omicron variant and run it on one of their rapid tests, and they say it worked. Here's more from the scientists here at Abbott. Was there a moment where you were nervous and unsure if your test would work for this new variant?
We always have a sense of urgency anytime we're looking at a sequence to understand whether it could impact our test. And so as I looked through the data, it was kind of like I was holding my breath as I was looking through it. And then when I got to the end and saw through all of the sections of our targets that we have conservation, it was a breath of fresh air to be like, this is okay. We can be confident in the results of our tests.
Joe?
So, Ellison, first of all, I'm glad someone can read all those numbers on those screens there, because I sure can't. But it's not just Abbott, of course. Other companies are making at-home tests. What are they saying about whether their tests can identify the new variant?
Yeah, so the FDA has approved over-the-counter at-home rapid antigen test kits made by 10 different companies. We reached out to all of them to ask whether or not they've been able to test their at-home kits with this new sequence. We heard back from 6 of those. Let me show you the companies that we heard from. They all say that they are confident their at-home over-the-counter test will work with this new variant. Abbott's Binax Now, which is, of course, where we are, Access Bio Care Start, Acon's FlowFlex, Quittle's QuickView, Illume, and also BD Veritor. So all of these companies say that they have run the Omicron variant, the sequence, the unique sequence, again, all those numbers, that crazy-looking code, and that their test worked for it. 2 of them say they were able to use a physical sample in order to ensure that it works. If you actually look at the COVID virus particle with me, the one that has kind of the crazy-looking red spikes around it, the reason why we are being told everyone is confident once they ran the sequence that their test will still work is because they say most of the mutations that occurred with the COVID Omicron variant, they took place in the red spiky parts of the cell, the spike proteins, and that's not the area that their tests rely on to test. So if you think of it as like a piece of chocolate, the peanut inside is what they're testing. The chocolate part on the outside is where all the mutations occurred. To give you a sense really quickly, Joe, of what the test looks like here, this is a Binax Now kit. This is what most rapid tests look like. 15 minutes, you can have a result. For this one, any of the other ones, most of them should be available at a Walgreens, a CVS, a grocery store. If you don't see it in the aisle, you should be able to ask your pharmacist for one. And they should be pretty widely available.
Yeah, that's the one I use, and I just asked them when I didn't see them on the shelves, and they found some in the back and brought them out for me. So, all right, Ellison, thanks so much. Those tests are going to be important, especially this holiday season. Appreciate it. Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor, Dr. Naheed Bedelia. So, doctor, let's talk about at-home tests. So if someone does one of those, say, 15-minute tests, and they test positive, what should they do next? Do they go to a doctor? Do they try and get another test? What happens after that?
Yeah, Joe, great question. So what people should know is that the reason why rapid tests are useful in this situation is that they are likely to be positive exactly when you are most transmissible. So the first thing you can do is to isolate yourself, particularly if you're living in a house with other people and they don't have symptoms or they don't have the infection yet, and then to call your healthcare provider. For what might happen in that setting, if you are healthy or not at risk for a more severe disease, you may just be told to isolate. You may be asked to just check your symptoms to see how you're feeling and to check back in with the healthcare provider. If you are someone who might be more high risk, the healthcare provider may ask you to come in to get tested again, potentially with a confirmatory test with a PCR, and potentially get monoclonal antibodies, access to monoclonal antibodies, which can help reduce your chance, as we know, from going from being outpatient and having symptoms to potentially getting hospitalized. And that's particularly important now, Joe, because on the horizon, as you know, there might be a couple of oral pills as well that address COVID-19. So letting your provider know about your positive test is important so you can access those.
Yeah, more and more treatments out there. Let's look overseas. Health officials in the European Union say Omicron could be dominant in Europe by spring. We know we've often sort of looked at Europe to see what might be ahead for the United States. So what do you think that could mean for us here in America?
Yeah, what's important to know is that Europe is actually basing that on South Africa's data. South Africa is seeing a huge increase in cases, and they are seeing a huge number of samples actually come back as Omicron, but it's unclear if that entire surge is Omicron or also Delta sort of somewhere in the mix. But they're looking at that, and they're projecting that, if you found now Omicron in multiple countries in Europe, that and the speed at which they're detecting more cases, that there might be increase in Omicron and its ability sort of to be dominant in Delta. I would just say we don't know. The coming weeks will probably tell. I think it's good to be cautious about it, though.
Some other news this morning, German company BioNTech announced that it would be able to adapt the Pfizer vaccine quickly for Omicron. Help us understand, what is the timeline for something like that when it comes to updating these vaccines for these new variants?
Well, currently, the vaccine manufacturers, all of them, are furiously rushing to do laboratory tests, neutralization tests, where they look to see in the laboratory if antibodies created in vaccinated people or even previously infected people who got vaccinated, to see if the Omicron variant is able to defeat them and how much reduction there is, right? Based on that, if they find that there's significant reduction in protection against infection, what they've said is that they're going to try to adapt this. BioNTech has previously said about 100 days from the point where they discover that they need to, and then it might take a couple of months for manufacturing to get those boosters out there. What I will just say to people is that regardless of where that number shifts, we're still talking about months. So this holiday season, this winter surge, your best bet is the current booster, and your best bet is the vaccines.
All right, good advice as always, Dr. Bedelia. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill averted a crisis by passing a temporary spending bill last night to avoid a government shutdown. The bill, which now heads to President Biden's desk for a signature, will keep the government funded until February. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Kristen Welker joins us now with the latest. Kristen, good morning to you. So Congress avoided a government shutdown, but the process was not without some drama, of course. Walk us through what happened to actually get this bill passed.
Yeah, it was pretty messy, Joe, that's for sure. Happy Friday to you. Well, overnight, Congress did pass that legislation to fund the government through mid-February and avoid a partial shutdown, which would have gone into effect at midnight tonight. But as you point out, it came after a tense standoff with a group of conservative Republican senators who threatened to shut down the government over the Biden administration's vaccine and testing mandates for large employers. Now, ultimately, that fight fizzled out for now, with Republicans not wanting to be politically blamed for shutting down the government at the very moment the country is facing yet a new COVID crisis, what you guys have been talking about all morning. So what are the practical takeaways here? Well, the government is going to stay open, which means that hundreds of thousands of federal workers will stay on the job. National parks will stay open, and there won't be any disruption to other critical government services. But look for that fight over mandates, Joe, to continue into the future.
So, Kristen, what does all this mean for the larger Biden agenda? Because the president has a lot he wants to get done even before the Christmas break.
Well, that's right. And this could spell trouble because this was supposed to be the easy part, Joe, keeping the government open. And while Congress did do that in the 11th hour, they still have a lot on their plate that could get even messier. They have not yet passed a critical bill that sets annual defense policy. Lawmakers have to raise the nation's borrowing limit, the debt limit, which we talk about all the time. That expires in the middle of this month. And remember, the president still wants to get that $1.75 trillion climate and social spending plan passed. Republicans reject it outright. They all oppose it. So he's going to have to do it with only Democratic support. And even some moderate Democrats like Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema have expressed some real concerns about the price tag. So the bottom line here, that messy fight over funding the government, which we just witnessed, could be a really good preview of things to come, Joe.
All right, Kristen, my friend, thanks so much. And I'll see you tomorrow morning on Today.
Looking forward to it. Great to see you.
And with that, let's get a check on your morning news now. Weather Bill Cairns is back with us. Bill, what's going on this weekend?
All right, let's talk a little bit about snow. Not for a lot of us, but some of us are finally going to have some of the white stuff to play in, especially along the northern half of the northern border along with Canada. Our friends anywhere from British Columbia through Seattle, they're going to get the storm today, and then the storm is going to slide through the northern plains we have winter weather advisories, we have winter storm watches that are out, and you notice it's pretty much extreme northern portions of our country that are only going to get hit the hardest. So here's the storm as it moves in today into areas of the northwest. Saturday, it moves through areas of Montana. Snow breaks out from Bismarck up towards Duluth, north of Minneapolis, up towards Marquette, Michigan. The Upper Peninsula is going to get nailed by this storm. South of, let's say, Chicago, Detroit, this is just a rain event for you. We may even get a few strong thunderstorms around Little Rock and Memphis come Sunday afternoon. Keep that in mind. So how much snow are we talking? I mean, it's enough that you're going to have to do some shoveling and plowing. The Cascades up through Missoula to Cutbank to Glasgow and Bismarck to Fargo will have some snowy conditions on Sunday. And then, as I said, mostly north of Minneapolis. I don't expect a lot in Minneapolis, maybe an inch on the grassy surfaces. No snow for you in Milwaukee, but Green Bay northwards, you'll get some snow. Notice we didn't talk about Denver in any snow. So here's our streak, our snowless streak in Denver. It's been 226 days since the last measurable snow on April 21st. The record for the longest duration with no snow in Denver is 235 days, and that goes all the way back to 1887. I don't think we're going to get there, though, because there's a good chance we're going to get some snow on Tuesday in Denver. So we'll get up there around 230, but we'll be about 4 or 5 days short. And because of the snowless start to this winter, we actually had a decent amount of rain this summer in Colorado, but now we've been about 3 months in a row with very little rain or snow in Colorado. And now we have extreme drought that's popped up in a few spots. And of course, we all know about the water issues and the reservoir issues along the Colorado River. This is not what we want. We need to get that snowpack built up the rest of this winter. So for today's forecast, pretty quiet day and unusually warm day too. Almost 80 degrees in San Antonio, Dallas, and Oklahoma City. Another warm, beautiful day, St. Louis, Nashville, Atlanta. It is colder, though, in the Northeast and windy, too. And that'll continue as we go into tomorrow also, guys. So heading into the weekend, a little bit of snow, but still no big, storms. I haven't said anything about ice or sleet. And, you know, it's getting that time where I'm waiting. It's going to come.
It'll come. It'll come, Bill. Don't worry. Patience. Yeah. All right. Have a good weekend. Good to see you.
We get excited. All right, you too.
Coming up, more from that emotional interview with actor Alec Baldwin on that deadly movie set shooting. Baldwin now pushing back on criticism that he should have done more to make sure the gun involved was safe. We got that story next. Welcome back. We're learning more this morning from Alec Baldwin about that deadly shooting on the set of his film Rust. In the actor's first formal interview since the tragedy that left cinematographer Helena Hutchins dead, Baldwin insisted he's not responsible for the accident. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer has more.
I used to love to make movies. I did. You know.
Emotional and at times defiant.
I feel that someone is responsible for what happened, and I can't say who that is, but I know it's not me.
Alec Baldwin telling ABC News his version of how cinematographer Helena Hutchins was shot and killed with a Colt 45 revolver he was holding while rehearsing a scene like this. The actor says he pulled back the hammer but didn't fully cock the weapon.
I'm holding that. I'm just showing. I go, how about that? Does that work? Do you see that? Do you see that? She goes, yeah, that's good. I let go of the hammer. Bang, the gun goes off.
Baldwin insisting he never pulled the trigger.
Everyone is horrified. They're shocked. It's loud. They don't have their earplugs in. No one was. The gun was supposed to be empty.
You can trust me too. It's true. What?
Baldwin says he's grieving for Hutchins and her family.
This boy doesn't have a mother anymore. And there's nothing we can do to bring her back. She was someone who was loved by everyone who worked with and liked by everyone who worked with and admired.
Attorneys for the film's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, recently telling Savannah they believe someone deliberately sabotaged the set by mixing live ammunition into a box labeled dummy rounds.
The person who put the live round in the box of dummy rounds had to have the purpose of sabotaging this set. There's no other reason you would do that you would mix that live round in with a dummy round.
It's a claim Baldwin says he doesn't believe.
That's an enormous charge to make, that someone came in and did something. For what purpose? What was their motive in doing that if somebody did that? It's overwhelmingly likely that it was an accident.
Just hours before the deadly shooting, members of the film's camera crew had walked off the set, citing poor working conditions and safety concerns. But Baldwin telling ABC News he had no knowledge of any serious issues on the set and believed the filming on Rust was going well.
And so help me God, I sat on that pew right before they called lunch, and I said, this movie has made me love making movies again.
Baldwin also pushing back against criticism he should have checked the gun even after being told it was cold or safe by assistant director Dave Halls.
The actor's responsibility is to do what the prop armorer tells him to do.
And when asked if he feels guilt as well as grief, Baldwin said no.
Honest to God, if I felt that I was responsible, I might have killed myself if I thought I was responsible. I don't say that lightly.
Our thanks to Miguel Almaguer for that report. All right, we're going to turn now and take a look at what is making news around the world this morning.
NBC's Raf Sanchez joins us again from Tel Aviv. Raf, good morning.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Vicky. Japan has been jolted by a pair of strong earthquakes this morning. The first at Mount Fuji, registered at 4.8, and a second one followed soon after near Osaka. No injuries were reported, and there's only minor damage like broken windows, but it's raising fears of more seismic activity to come. Germany is saying goodbye to Angela Merkel after her 16 years as the country's leader. Mama Merkel, as she's known, was honored last night at a military ceremony where a band played her a 70s punk song. She's expected to formally step down as chancellor next week. And finally, the skeletal remains of a man killed nearly 2,000 years ago are shedding new light onto one of history's most famous volcanoes. The man died in 79 AD when Mount Vesuvius erupted. Lava and ash wiped out both Pompeii and the site of Herculaneum, where this body was found. And guys, it's a pretty extraordinary glimpse into the past.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting look back. All right, Ralph, thank you so much.
All right, coming up on this hour of Morning News Now, a social media mega fad in the pandemic age built up and brought down by internet users. How a bag of magic dirt, more or less, became one of this year's weirdest marketing schemes.
Plus, with abortion access for millions of Americans now at stake, how California is gearing up for an influx of out-of-state patients. Those stories up next.
Now to a new documentary about the deadly events at Travis Scott's music festival Astroworld. It was quickly taken off Hulu following social media backlash. One widely circulated tweet criticized the special, saying, quote, "Not enough time has passed to fully discuss this." The documentary was actually produced by KTRK, that's ABC's local Houston station. It can still be seen on their website. In a statement to Variety, a Hulu spokesperson says the 50-minute film was removed to avoid confusion. Last month, a massive crowd surge at Astroworld left 10 people dead and dozens injured. Several lawsuits have now been filed as a result.
All right, Vicky, thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right, here is a wild story. It's about how the internet fueled and then defeated a multi-level marketing fan that was selling dirt in plastic bags for $110. The website for Black Oxygen Organics, or BOO, B-O-O for short, encouraged its users to wear, bathe, and even drink the dirt, with private Facebook groups claiming it could cure everything from autism to cancer to Alzheimer's disease. Senior reporter for NBC News, Brandy Zadrozny, joins us now. She dug into the history of BOO and its ultimate downfall. Brandy, first of all, what exactly is BOO? How did it become so popular?
Well, BOO is a multi-level marketing company out of Ontario, and multi-level marketing is where you can't just go buy this stuff at a store. You buy it from a friend who makes money selling it to you and who also makes money recruiting new sellers. So MLMs are extremely common. There's 7.7 million Americans working for them right now. Not all of them are so scammy. This one was selling a lot of alternative health products, specifically this thing called BOO, which was pills and powders they claim were dug from a peat bog in Ontario. And they, like you said, claimed it was like the holy grail for health and wellness. They were claiming it could cure everything from COVID to cancer to autism.
So, Brandy, in your article on NBCNews.com, Brian Bennett, a professor of physics at Marquette University, he studied fulvic and humic acids as a biochemist, called Boo snake oil. What did you find actually made up this product?
Well, Joe, just to be clear, this stuff is dehydrated mud. It is dirt, okay? It's dug up from a bog, which isn't really a swamp. It's more like a spongy meadow. It's made of these really old plants that are slow decaying, like we're talking tens of thousands of years, in this really low oxygen, high acidity soil. It's called peat. We use it for golf courses. They use it. You can go buy some at your favorite lawn and garden store to grow plants in. And they dehydrated that. They added some vitamin C and they bagged it for $110 a pop. We had it separately tested at Ohio State University, and this lab did find that it had elevated levels of lead and arsenic, which is pretty common in soil. That's a reason that we don't eat it.
That's good advice right there. So now Boo attracted a lot of supporters online. It also brought out many critics dedicated to debunking the claims surrounding it. How did they help bring about the ultimate end of Boo? How did this all come to a conclusion?
Yeah, we talk a lot about content moderation and what the platforms can do. But in this instance, and in a lot like it, the strongest pushback actually comes from regular people on the internet. And these were anti-MLM activists, folks who just don't like MLMs, think they're predatory. And they formed these groups where they basically infiltrated the Boo groups. They joined them, they attended the Boo sales meetings, and then they would report back what they had seen to the group. And they really encouraged everybody to make complaints with the FDA and the FTC and Health Canada, which eventually did put a recall out for the product. And that sort of started the whole cascade of events that led to Boo's demise.
Fascinating read. You got to check it out, the full article on NBCNews.com. Brandy Zadrozny, thanks so much for your reporting and joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Now, one of the biggest stories of this week has been the future of abortion rights. More than 20 states are poised to ban or restrict abortions if the Supreme Court upholds a Mississippi law that bans abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, or goes even further and overrules Roe versus Wade entirely. If that does happen, California could end up seeing a massive influx of women seeking abortion care. According to a recent study by the Guttmacher Institute, if Roe versus Wade falls and 26 states implement a total ban on abortion, California could see a near 3,000% in rise in women of reproductive age driving to the state for abortion access. That's roughly 1.4 million women, the majority of whom would likely come from one state, Arizona. NBC News correspondent Jake Ward is outside San Francisco's main abortion clinic, joins us now. So, Jake, first of all, explain to us why California is seen as an abortion safe haven for women who come from out of state.
Well, Joe, this state has, if anything, prided itself on making abortion services easily accessible, or as easily accessible as possible to millions of women. The governor, Gavin Newsom, saying that this would be a state that supports reproductive rights going forward, no matter what happens in these other states. I'm standing right now in front of San Francisco General Hospital, the main metro hospital of San Francisco, and the clinic here that offers abortion services, the Women's Options Clinic, says that they will have to be ready. It is simply the case that this state is going to be the one place that many, many, many women across the country will have as an option for coming to get those services should the laws change in the rest of the country, Joe.
So, Jake, are abortion providers in California right now doing anything to prepare to deal with the potential influx of women seeking care?
Yeah, we've been speaking to people across the gamut of abortion services, whether it's the grant-making agencies that try to help people who cannot afford something like a plane ticket with their work. We've spoken to researchers who are looking at the after effects of either getting or being denied an abortion. And we spoke with the head of Planned Parenthood affiliates of Northern California about what it is that she thinks will come from this if it were to be the case that the rest of the country outlaws abortion. Here's what she had to say.
We're preparing to assume that we'll have a huge impact on our health centers, and we're preparing for that both in workforce, in our capabilities and in technologies and telehealth, and how we can expand and reach patients. And I know we're not the only health centers doing that. The idea that because you put a ban on abortion means that people won't need abortions is illogical. People will need the same type of health care that they're getting today. Just because you put a barrier in front of them tomorrow doesn't mean that the need goes away.
Joe, again, the number one stat that really has jumped out in my mind from looking at this is that 3,000% more women will have as their only nearby option for abortion services the state of California. That is the kind of influx that this state could see.
That is a huge increase. So, Jake, what are experts saying could happen in those states that do ban or restrict abortion access?
Well, we spoke to the author of the nation's largest study of what happens when you can and cannot get an abortion when you want one. And I asked her what it is that we think we will see in the rest of the country should these bans go into effect. Here's what her research says. Have a listen.
So it's not just about the end of the pregnancy. In terms of physical health, you'll see in those states that restrict access to abortion that people will be more likely to be in poverty, will be less able to take care of their existing children, and they'll also they'll have children at a time when they weren't ready, and that actually can have emotional consequences as well. We find worse maternal bonding for women who are forced to carry that pregnancy to term than for women who are able to get their abortion and have a child later under better circumstances.
And Joe, next week, the state of California and a consortium of providers here are expected to debut a Future of Abortion forum that will offer guidelines as to how states like California should prepare. That's the kind of preparations going on here in this state, Joe.
All right, Jake Ward, thanks so much. Coming up on Morning News Now, if it's Friday, you know we've got your weekly dose of good to know on deck. From a very welcome change to the way one bank is doing business to the return of a holiday favorite at McDonald's, we've got you covered. And speaking of the holidays, we're going to take you behind the scenes of Amazon's round-the-clock warehouse vaults, working overtime to ensure you get your gifts fast. That's next. We're back now with the story of an Indiana mother who's holding her newborn son for the first time after giving birth while intubated and fighting for her life against COVID-19. She's now on her way home following a remarkable recovery. NBC News Now anchor Tom Yamas reports.
For Autumn and Zach Carver, it's been a long, hard battle with COVID.
Definitely the hardest and toughest thing that I've ever done in my life, hands down.
Autumn was hospitalized with COVID 100 days ago while she was pregnant with the couple's third child. That baby, Huxley, was born healthy, but his mother would remain intubated. It would be more than 50 days before mother and son were reunited, an emotional moment we showed you right on this broadcast.
But now a moment the family will never forget and a reason for that mom to smile.
And it was a very special memory that I'll never forget, handing him for the first time to Autumn, who was laying in a bed fighting for her life, and we both hugged him and kissed him and looked at each other's eyes. And
Autumn now sharing what that moment was like for her.
There aren't words for how great it was. It was amazing. I didn't feel really great that day, so the visit wasn't very long, but it was definitely meaningful.
But even after that day, her doctors in Indiana felt they were running out of options.
They felt that she was at the end of the road. There was nothing further that could have been done.
Autumn was transferred to Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago, a candidate for a lung transplant. Dr. Ankit Bharat is Northwestern's chief of thoracic surgery.
We recognized that she could benefit from some additional interventions with the intent of helping her lungs to get better.
And after a few days of treatment at Northwestern, progress.
A few days after we started those, she demonstrated signs of lung recovery. So we put the transplant on pause and we said, well, let's continue to support her and see what happens.
What kept Autumn going through this long battle? Her family, especially her husband.
So many people would have given up based on what he was told every day for so long, but he never did, never lost the positivity.
With that positivity, her recovery sped up. Autumn, walking out of Northwestern Hospital, headed home to her family and her 3 kids for the first time in 100 days.
Good to see that. That was Tom Yamas reporting for us. Time now for our CNBC Money Minute, the biggest financial headlines of the day and why they matter to you. Silvana Henao is back with us. Good morning, Silvana.
Hey, good morning. So we're getting the latest snapshot of the labor market this morning. The U.S. added 210,000 jobs in November, much lower than the 573,000 jobs economists had expected. But the unemployment rate did dip lower, falling to 4.2% from 4.5%. Tesla says it needs graphite from China to make batteries for its electric cars, and it is asking the U.S. Trade Representative to waive 25% tariffs on artificial graphite imported from China, which was levied during the Trump administration. There had been temporary exclusions on some of these tariffs, but many expired in late 2020 or earlier this year. Now, hundreds of auto industry players are asking the Biden administration to extend the tariff waivers. Tesla saying only mainland China can provide the quantity of graphite it needs to manufacture its batteries in the U.S. And college applications are rebounding this year after decreasing during the height of the pandemic. The total number of applications submitted is up 22% over pre-pandemic 2019 levels and up nearly that much from last year. That's according to data from the Common App, which doesn't include applications to community colleges. The data also shows a big jump in applications from foreign students, up 40% from pre-pandemic levels. And that could be good for schools, since foreign students typically pay significantly more than domestic students. Back to you.
All right. Thanks, Savannah. Have a good weekend.
You got it. You too.
Say goodbye to that pesky bank fee. Alexa helps with chores, plus an easier way to read the fine print on your prescriptions. It's all coming your way in this week's Good to Know. Here's Vicki Wynn.
We start with some good news for your bank account. Capital One announced it's eliminating a $35 overdraft fee for all customers. The new policy begins in January. Capital One joins other banks like Ally that have dropped similar charges. Can't find your glasses? CVS Pharmacy is rolling out a new feature that will read prescription labels out loud. Using the CVS app, patients can now scan their prescription bottles for an audio message with dosage and directions. The feature is available nationwide in English and Spanish. This might help with your next laundry load. Amazon said its Alexa devices can now detect appliances beeping and running water. Users will be alerted when their laundry or dishwasher is done or if a faucet is left running. Get your taste buds ready. McDonald's is bringing back its vanilla custard holiday pie at select locations across the U.S. Customers can use the McDonald's app to check availability in their areas.
Thank you, Vicki. And I've always wanted to say this. That's good to know. Supply chain shortages and shipping delays have some shoppers scrambling to get gifts for loved ones in time for the holidays. But online retail giant Amazon can predict what you will order before you press that add to cart button. And they never seem to be out of stock, helping take the stress out of holiday shopping. NBC News correspondent Tom Costello has a behind-the-scenes look at how it all works.
Yeah, hey, Joe and Vicki, good morning. You know, how often does it happen? You're sitting at home in front of the computer at night, maybe the kids are in bed, and you find that great deal, you click buy. What happens next? How is it possible Amazon seems to anticipate what you and your neighbors want and have it all in stock? We spent 2 days behind the scenes at Amazon's facilities in the Midwest to see how it all comes together.
This morning, behind the scenes at Amazon, and a first-hand look at one of the most sophisticated networks of computers, robots, trucks, planes, and software that anticipates what you'll order before you even click buy. On Black Friday alone, 1,600 orders every second.
This is the busiest delivery station in all of Michigan. During the peak holiday rush, 116,000 packages a day, and that means each delivery van will deliver about 250 packages.
But your order actually starts here, at one of Amazon's massive fulfillment centers. Justin Walsh's job is to fill orders fast, and he's got help. An army of 8,000 yellow robots carrying hundreds of unrelated items and programmed to roll into position with whatever Justin needs at just the right moment.
It's really mental. Like, in my mind, I'm always learning where the barcodes are, what the items are.
At this site alone, Amazon stocks 20 million items, from cell phones to shampoo to snacks to baseballs. And Amazon actually predicts your next purchase using software that analyzes every order placed in your zip code, then stocks up for the next order.
We can make adjustments to our inventory across the entire network, making sure that we have a continuous supply of inventory ready to go so that we can fulfill our customers' orders in a timely fashion.
From here, packages head to Amazon's brand new Air Hub at the Cincinnati airport. Inside, even more mini robots are in constant motion, barely missing each other as they rush from barcode to barcode. Minutes later, all those packages get loaded into cargo containers and onto a waiting plane. Amazon now has 110 planes in its global fleet. Your package's final stop, a delivery station near you with vans lined up early in the morning.
Each driver arranges their truck so that whatever's going to be delivered first is the first package to come off. So they load from front to back and then go the opposite direction as they deliver.
So basically, our routes are figured at the beginning of the night. So we know all the volume that's going to come in at midnight.
Once out the door, every turn on each route determined by Amazon software to speed delivery round the clock, from the minute you click till the minute your package arrives.
I got to say, 2 days behind the scenes, seeing this technology up close and personal, it's eye-popping. And now, listen, Amazon has been accused, perhaps rightly so, of driving some brick-and-mortar retailers out of business. Tens of thousands, allegedly, out of business because of Amazon. But Amazon says, okay, but we also now host 2 million small and medium-sized businesses using their platform to sell their products. Regardless, it is the reality of shopping in 2021. Vicki and Joe, back to you.
All right, Tom Costello, thank you. Coming up, your one-stop shop for all the can't-miss hits in the world of entertainment this weekend, including the highly anticipated return of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, plus some holiday highlights from ABBA, and, of course, the Great British Bake Off. We'll get you tuned in next. It's Friday, which means it's time for our can't miss list. All the shows and music to catch up on this weekend that everyone will be talking about on Monday. Joining us now with some recommendations is Angelique Jackson. She's a senior entertainment writer for Variety. Good to have you with us. And let's throw it back this weekend. Some classics are coming back, a few reboots. I'm going to start with a fan favorite. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, returning for a 15th season. What more can you tell us about that?
Yes, as you said, this is the record-breaking 15th season of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and it's really the show's most ambitious yet. This is TV's longest-running live-action sitcom, and the gang are back to make sense of current events as the way that only the 5 owners of Patty's Pub can, as outrageously as possible. As you can see in the teaser, they are back in business, but they also are heading to Ireland for the second half of the season so that more international chaos can ensue. Now, this show airs on Wednesdays on FXX and airs the next day on FX on Hulu, and you can take solace in remembering, too, that this show has been renewed for 3 more seasons, taking it all the way to season 18.
Oh, wow, that's a lot of seasons. All right, so now it is December. We got to talk about the holidays in full swing. We're used to Michael Bublé's holiday music. Now ABBA has a new Christmas single, and as always, there's a special holiday edition of the Great British Bake Off, which is a huge hit. Tell us more about these holiday highlights.
Well, I am thrilled about this new and the first, rather, ever Christmas single from ABBA. It is called Little Things. It dropped earlier today, and the song appears on the reformed Swedish pop group's hit album Voyage. And it has this great music video that shows a group of school children preparing for their Christmas show and performing like ABBA. Just kind of goes to show that a new generation has really come to love this group. And as you mentioned, love, I think everybody has been obsessed with the Great British Bake Off, and in particular during quarantine. If you didn't pick it up before, you certainly did then. So this is their 4th ever holiday edition show, and it's 2 specials. There's a Christmas and a New Year's special, and it brings back some of the ghosts of bakers past, if you will, back to the tent to compete again to see who can make the most delicious and holiday-themed confections. So this year, back for the Christmas episode, are Jamie, Rosie, Ruby, and James. And the New Year's show, we have 2 former winners in Nancy, Rahul, and then Helena and Henry. So, I mean, it's already on Netflix. You could really just go over there and watch that right after this.
I have no idea who any of those people are, but it sounds great. All right, so lastly, let's go back to reboots. A few notable ones are coming out soon. So what should we rewatch this weekend to prepare for next week's big releases?
Yes, so two major reboots, remakes, reimaginings, if you will, are coming next week. We have the debut of Steven Spielberg's version of West Side Story coming on Friday. So in honor of that, I recommend that everyone go back and watch the 1961 original film, starring, of course, the lovely and talented and legendary Rita Moreno, who makes an appearance, as you just saw there, in this new film, playing a new character. Instead of Doc, her character is Valentina, but we have all of the regulars there. Ariana DeBose plays Anita, and it's truly a beautiful musical. But then we also have Sex and the City is coming back with its own new chapter. It's called And Just Like That, and it is a new series coming on HBO Max. So you can catch up over the weekend on all 6 seasons of the show, plus the 2 movies, just in time to see what Carrie, Miranda, and Charlotte have been up to.
All right, a great plan. Angelique, thank you so much. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.